Hi everyone, I'm James, and today I'm going to help you understand if there's demand to launch your business overseas. It all starts with a few numbers. This is a chart we've presented a lot before. There is similar kind of information presented online on SEO websites. We always see these crazy numbers, how there's 1 billion active internet users in China, or India has surpassed the United States in online spend. And for a lot of businesses, they want to be somewhere overseas, like the famous words of Bobby Darin. They want a piece of that action. They want to generate new revenue from foreign markets. However, as we all know, growth overseas is risky. There are a lot of obstacles to overcome, not just for SEO, but for all other digital marketing channels. A lot of moving parts, rolls of the dice, lots of risk. Tough questions need to be answered as well. So is there demand overseas? Are people searching for your brand, your products? Is your brand or product even wanted in those markets? A lot of foreign areas want to stick with the status quo. They don't want to change. Foreign audiences are also extremely hard to reach. There are language barriers, but also technology barriers. The way people interact with websites differs greatly from market to market. Oban have been doing this for 17 years though, and in that time we've all developed various strategy guides, SEO unique ones, paid search unique ones, even social media. And today I'm just going to share some of the top level insights we've developed over the years. So, establishing audience demand. So there are two types of demand, or audience demands. There's the demand of you as my audience, and there's the demand of businesses, potential audiences. So anyone who's attended New Biz knows that a lot of companies that approach us want to break into one of these two markets, the United States or China. They're extremely tough markets to enter. There are huge barriers to entry in terms of online spend, also legal issues, even the way people interact with websites differs greatly from what we do here in the UK or in Europe. So, thankfully, there's a whole planet out there, whether it's round or flat. I'm not going to answer that question today. There are plenty of countries and foreign markets to choose from. But figuring out where to start is a challenge. It is not as simple as throwing a dart at a map and hoping for the best. A bit of research and insight needs to go into it. So, one of the first areas we could potentially start is Google Analytics. It's a free tool. Most websites should have it, and if they don't, we should be recommending that they have it. But one thing the SEO team is very guilty of is going straight to the acquisition tab, where we can see all of the useful metrics such as sessions, revenue, conversions, even user engagement metrics. But the audience tab is extremely powerful. For some of our existing clients, we can start filtering by location and language, very simple aspects, and identify huge amounts of opportunity. This is for one of our current clients, and they are based solely in the UK, serving only a UK audience. But what we've realized early on, and what we're working with them as an opportunity, is targeting markets that don't speak English, like the States, but Germany, France, Italy, and Japan, where there is big demand for people coming to the UK to interact with this brand. In addition to that, we can drill down through some of the insights we get, and that can start to become a bit more strategic. For the same brand, when looking at Germany, we can see that there's huge amounts of revenue coming from Munich, Frankfurt, Hamburg, and Berlin. Well, that's not necessarily something that we can do as the SEO team by exclusively targeting those cities. That's insight that the paid team could action. It could also allow clients who have an e-commerce platform to connect with local market suppliers or providers and build relationships or site launches and strategies at the city level. We can also flip the information on its head by adding products into the equation. We do get approached by a lot of websites or companies that want to launch their entire catalog overseas. But if we start going through the analytics, we can see that maybe there's only one, two, or a handful of products that would actually serve audiences in specific markets better. So rather than launching a whole site, let's just focus on one or two things at a time. Keyword research is the next logical step. So a lot of companies won't have that GA data, but keyword research is accessible and available to anyone. But finding keywords is tricky, especially if we don't speak the foreign languages. Thankfully, we have the Lime network, but for other businesses, there are challenges. Google Translate is a good-ish place to start. It is not a strategy, it's a way of getting inspiration. Just taking a few short, simple phrases or queries, putting them into Translate for a few languages is a great way of generating seed keywords that can be used in other tools or platforms. A better way of finding that initial seed keyword list is evaluating your competitors. So for foreign markets, obviously we won't have an idea of who our direct competitors are, but we could start with something like Amazon or eBay and drilling down through that information to see who's engaged with those platforms, selling on them already, and then reviewing their websites, their keyword strategies, their content strategies, taking that information, seeing what we could do with it and what we can build upon and improve. All of this information can then be put into Ahrefs and SEMrush. These are two extremely powerful tools that just with a few hours of initial research, uploading keyword portfolios or competitors' specific websites can unleash absolutely wonderful information that will inform a strategy. Taking that information will give competitors the chance, give companies the chance to launch overseas. But we have to also dial it back to the keyword level. There is opportunity there, but there are some keywords that vary market by market. So let's take winter holidays, for example. We all have an idea of what a winter holiday might be here in the UK. Probably skiing, some après-ski, maybe snowboarding if you're feeling adventurous. But go market by market, the interpretation of winter holidays differs greatly. In America, it's snowmobiling. In Denmark, it's hiking. The expectation is completely different. Interests and intent vary greatly. We also need to keep a finger on trends. So Greggs recently have absolutely crushed it with their vegan sausage roll. We can see these huge spikes in the UK. But there is opportunity in Australia and New Zealand. There is demand there as well. Lower down the funnel, we can see the Netherlands as well, having a particular interest in baked goods. These are wonderful opportunities that we can approach. Just putting in a few keywords, competitors, would let us understand if those things are just kind of flash in the pan trends or memes or something with substance. All of this is worth the time and effort. This isn't a 10-minute job. This takes hours and hours and hours of research, insight, and investment. So that's audience demands, but search engines have their own demands. So Google is still top dog. This is Rory, my dog. If you haven't heard me go about him a million times, he's wonderful. He loves this section. Google have a 95% market share around the world. That means all of the other search engines pale in comparison. And there's one thing that we need to ask our clients from an SEO perspective before they launch overseas is, how is their SEO strategy going at home? Because if they're not ranking first for their hero keywords, if their website is not presenting any errors in Search Console, not having any crawl issues, all of their pages are indexed, if they can't achieve that, it's unlikely they're going to have any success overseas, because international SEO is just a tiny, tiny smidge different. There's all kinds of factors that people will never have considered before as part of their website. For example, they have to choose a subfolder, subdomain, or country code top-level domain. This is the bit in the URL that will say, is it .com/de.de, or you could even have de. your website. Each has its pros and cons, but choosing the wrong one will mean your website could never take off the ground in some markets. Automatic redirection is also a hot topic of conversation at the moment, where if a user lands on a website, they might be redirected to a more suitable website in their own tongue or in their own country. However, Google and other search engines greatly frown on this, and it can cause issues with the indexation and ranking of content. And from a user experience perspective, a lot of people don't like it. They've clicked onto a specific link to get onto a specific website. They don't want to be directed elsewhere. Canonicals and Hreflang tags. So let's start with Canonicals first. If you've only ever had one website, this might not be your #1 consideration, but start getting more content, especially with similar languages such as English UK or English GB, English US, English Canada. That can become a bit of an issue. That's where Hreflangs come into play. But we've been approached by a lot of websites and clients in the past where their Hreflang strategy is woeful at best. It does cause a lot of issues, and it's something that Oban have been working on to develop the offering over the past few years. Sitemaps also need to be optimized. This is a basic part of SEO, but it's amazing how many websites just don't optimize their sitemaps. They'll just dump a load of URLs automatically, but then start adding more and more websites into the mix. How can you have one sitemap covering 9 websites? You need 9 separate sitemaps, maybe even more if they're large e-commerce sites. Content needs to be localized as well. We go on about it a lot with the Lime network, but a lot of websites just simply translate the content using tools or translation agencies, but they're missing out on opportunities. Each market has their own way of speaking, their own way of searching for content, their own little nuances. A direct translation is going to lose all of that, and it's going to provide not only no search engine signals, but poor user experience as well. Mobile experience is a must. So Google have recently, or in the last few years, switched over to the mobile first index. That means that they evaluate a website's mobile site first and not its desktop. It's looking at things like page speed, user experience, content on the page. Now, mobile usage around the world differs greatly. So China, 98% of Chinese users, internet users are on mobile. But then let's look at the States, where they have issues with page speed, connectivity, and a lot of data throttling. Each website needs to be catered to each specific market's needs. A lot of time and investment needs to go into things like page load speed, the way content appears on a page, and mobile user experience. Because user experience optimization is an essential part of SEO now. In the West, we like lots of big pictures, large or short snippets of text. In Asian markets, it's the reverse. Fewer pictures, larger sums of text. Even as countries as close as France, there are huge differences in user experience. Red means this is the normal cost of a product. Here in the UK, red means this is a discounted product. Now, let's take a look at some of the search engines around the world. So Baidu, you do require a link building strategy. There is no doubt about that. However, a link building strategy for Baidu differs greatly from a link building strategy for Google, even just a few years ago. There are different rules, different penalties. You need to have established relationships with existing websites and companies to generate those links. In Yandex, you'd need one of those .ru ccTLDs. Nothing else will do. If a website has a .com/ru, there are huge barriers to overcome there to even generate some form of rankings. Naver, hands up if you can answer this question. For the microphone, no one raised their hands. If you can't answer this question in any capacity, it's unlikely that you'll rank for Naver. You need to have localized Korean content that is extremely well written, well optimized. Any misspellings, any references to the English language or wrong types of Korean, you're not going to rank. Yahoo, the little engine that could. Yahoo in Japan has a 25% market share overall, but when we're looking at some of our clients, that could be as high as 70% of organic users are coming from this engine. Now, Yahoo is owned by a private company in Japan and not by the Yahoo that we know in the West. Its algorithm is also extremely different to Google, and there are contradictions that optimizing for one could cause an issue for the other engine. Bing. Bing has been on the rise on the past few years, thanks in large part to voice search. Things like Cortana are absolutely taking off, and Bing now has a 6% market share in the States. 6% doesn't sound like a lot, but that's still a few tens of millions of active internet users. Now, all of these were the SEO basics. These are the types of things that we have to approach clients with and make sure they're getting right, because if they're not, we know that there are going to be huge challenges to their international opportunity. Now, logistics. This appeals more to the business owners and the people that run the day-to-day operations, but we have worked on a few websites where these things have not been in consideration in the immediate. So let's say hypothetically a client's website is ready for search. The SEO team, the paid team, done a wonderful job of getting everything ready, but then back-end systems need to be updated. Not everything is set up with the user in mind. So firstly, payment methods vary and change throughout the world. What is popular in one country might be despised in another country. Now, when a website is encouraging people to spend money, not having the correct payment platform could cause huge issues in trust. People can leave websites in droves just because they don't like the e-commerce platform. International shipping is a key one to get right. Websites need to communicate properly how long a product will take to get from point A to point B. This has not been communicated effectively on some of our previous websites, so we worked with them to kind of optimize their content and be a bit more explicit about that. Customers need support constantly. They'll always have complaints, they'll always have concerns, or they just want to email or phone someone to let rip. So things need to be remembered. It's always 5 o'clock somewhere. Someone is always going to have a complaint at some point in time. But if your call center or support center is based in the UK, how is it possible to service someone based in Australia who are 11 hours ahead or behind? Okay, ahead. If they have a complaint, any delay in communication is just going to exacerbate the situation, and they could start leaving negative reviews on a website. Language barriers as well. It goes without saying, if your call center is based in one specific country, make sure there is staff that can answer the phone, answer emails in the native tongue. Because again, Google Translation isn't going to cut it. If someone has a really specific problem and it can't get answered, those negative reviews will start flying in. Some markets do require additional investment. Going back to the States at the beginning, there are huge financial barriers to entry. Digital ad spending is colossal in the States. Same with above the line activity. If we have websites that think they can, carve into a particular niche, they might be surprised at the scale of some of the companies and how they're operating and investing in their exposure. Thankfully, it's not all about SEO. I've touched on paid a few times, but there is excellent opportunity for the paid team to help seed some growth already by targeting specific keywords, focusing on specific landing pages. They can generate early exposure, while SEO can take 3 to 6 months to get going. Social media is also a shifting landscape. There is a lot of online chatter about how Facebook wants to be like WeChat, or WeChat is the equivalent of Facebook. That's not exactly the truth. WeChat does have the Facebook aspect, but it's also email. It's the equivalent of YouTube. It's the equivalent of news sites. It does so much for so many people. WeChat is more of a lifestyle than an actual website. Now, all of this was just scratching the surface. It is the tip of the iceberg. And as always at Oban, we hope we're getting our clients to dominate overseas or taking over the air. Thank you.